All right, I'm back with Gary Cardone. People really loved our interview. We talked Bitcoin, economy, real estate, deals, all kinds of stuff. So we were just chatting, and I said, you know what? I didn't hit record, so let's start recording this thing. So we're talking about doing bigger deals, and when it occurred to you that it's much easier to do the big deals, 50 million, 100 million, than it is to do a $5 million deal.
Well, we actually started talking. You were telling me about you coaching some doctors. Dude, that's a great story. I would love to hear more about that story. And Greg said something about, hey, I taught these guys how not to look at a $5 million deal, but to go chase $50 million deals. And it just kind of went off in a light bulb for me. I asked Greg, I said, hey, when did you learn that it was easier? I actually think it's easier to do bigger deals. When I was about 28, maybe 29, it dawned, and I was dealing with some really big numbers because I was dealing with energy, natural gas, electricity. You buy, hey, I want a whole month's worth of supply. I want a whole year. And they're large numbers, right? $5 million worth of nat gas is not a big deal. When I went to England, I realized, hey, they're just zeros. Literally, the contract's going to be the same size. The people that I'm dealing with on a $500 million deal are more professional, in my opinion. They're less emotional. They're doing something. They don't care if they're selling it under the market. They have a liquidation problem. Hey, it's a big volume. I love the professional guys. That's why I've never gone to the small consumer business, because those people are not professional. They complain, they get buyer's remorse, they feel abused, taken advantage of. And it really dawned on me, though, that day, that you literally need less energy to do a much bigger deal than the small deals. A bunch of small deals are a pain in the butt.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And real estate, like literally from a transaction process, I mean, if you're doing, a $5 million deal or a $50 million deal or a $100 million deal, I mean, the paperwork, the process, the steps, it's all the same. Financing is a little bit different. That's really the only thing that's different. But yeah, the actual, literally the steps in the process and the timeline is all the same. So you asked me, when did I learn that? And what we were talking about were the two doctors that I coached that I met in 2020, right before the pandemic. And they had about, 20 million, they had $100 million in assets under management. They're apartment syndicators. And I think they'd raised 20, maybe $40 million at the most at that point. So I taught them, three things. One was I taught them how to raise capital. So in the last 3 years working with me, I taught them how to raise $200 million. They've raised over $200 million in capital for their deals. And the second thing I taught them was quit messing with $10 and $20 million deals and start going 50 to 100 million. So they immediately did an $80 million deal next, right after I started coaching them. And then they, have done in that 50 to $100 million range ever since. So they're right at $1 billion in assets under management right now. And the third thing that I taught them was you got to treat this like a business. Because when I met them, it was just the two of them, and they had a part-time kind of virtual kind of helper. And I said, look, you need to become a real company. You need to be a high-end boutique, treat your investors differently, treat the people involved in the transactions differently, and become a real business. You need, and they were two partners. I said, you're the CEO, you're the COO. So I identified what their zone of genius was, put them each in their zone of genius. And then we did an org chart. And I said, this is what your team needs to look like if you want to be $1 billion company. And then the fourth thing that I taught them was, because their goal was $1 billion, right? They thought that was the end game. So I'm a martial artist. I'm a surfer, lifelong surfer, and I'm a martial artist my whole life. And everybody thinks when you start martial arts, the goal is to get a black belt. What happens is once you get there, you realize now you're ready to begin. So what I told them was, your goal is $1 billion. Well, once you get there, that's your starting point. Now you're ready for the big game. So, when you talk about big goals and big deals, so it hit me early on, some of my mentors were real estate developers, and they kind of taught me that, hey, the bigger deals are just way easier. They take a little longer when you're doing development, but when you're doing acquisition, time frame is literally the same. And then I heard Warren Buffett talk back in 2008 and 9. And when all the houses were going back to the banks and stuff, he said, if I could find a way to efficiently own millions and millions of houses, I'd do it. He said, but right now there's no efficient way for me to do it. He said, my problem is I have to move hundreds of billions of dollars. He said, the deals are harder at my level. So that's where the other light bulb went off, is that he's not unique. There's a lot of people out there that have a lot of money, and their biggest problem is they don't have a deal big enough to put it in. So what you want to do is, an entrepreneur, where there's big problems, there's big opportunities. So if you can move big loads of capital, that's where you can make big dollars.
Yeah. And it offers an opportunity for the smaller guy to aggregate a whole basket of assets, but he has to have the knowledge that there are fish in the ocean that are so large, their little meal that they're, bouncing $20 million on it literally doesn't even do anything for this whale, right? They need to deploy 2 million. And I would suggest this is one of Grant's place is, hey, aggregate enough supply in one consolidated book where you can then just transfer it all to a BlackRock, and that moves their needle, right? It's called moving the needle. It's a similar problem that I have right now with Node 40. It would be easier for me to raise $100 million for this company than it is to raise 12. I only need 12. I'm being fiscally responsible. I call Dan Tapiro. He's like, dude, please, man. It's just, it's flushing the toilet. Like I can't even do it. And
he's like, call me when you got a deal.
Call me when you need 50 mil, man. Call me when you're doing 50 million. I'm like, bro. And I say this to everybody, whether it's Bain or whoever, look, when I'm making 50 million, I won't need you. Like there's absolutely no reason to raise money if I'm profitably making, $50 million and doing it profitably. But it is a challenge, then identifying the people that want to play in whether it's apartments or private equity or venture capital. These smaller deals are, especially the small deals, man.
Yeah. So Grant's play, so an exit wouldn't necessarily be the highest payday for him and what he's got, so when you aggregate a lot of assets like he has, because he's really upscaled his assets, I mean, those funds can only pay so much. His play is to bring those guys in to recap all of his investors out of the deal. And then he stays in the deal. And now BlackRock's his partner and he holds those assets long-term. BlackRock's problem is nobody wants their money back, because once they get their money back, they're like, well, what are we going to do now? So he can take his portfolio. Let's say he gets to, whatever it is, 5 billion, 10 billion. He can take that portfolio to BlackRock and say, look, I'm going to sell you all the equity in this deal. We'll take my equity investors out and we'll be partners and I'll continue to operate. They'll love that.
Yeah, sure they would. Oh no, they would love that. Yeah, that's a shortage for them, right? Hey, we need.
Yeah, that's his play, and then he doesn't have a taxable event. Right.
But the long-term play. I mean, I think if I wouldn't even consider that. I don't. I mean, it wouldn't be a part of my strategy to exit to a BlackRock, because over time. Maybe this will be a different time, but if a family could hold 100 years worth of real estate, it has always proven to be very valuable. And the locations he's in, if we're talking about Grant, his locations are, well, at least the ones I'm in, his locations are awesome. I wish we'd have never sold the stuff in Arizona. Arizona doors, I had this weird feeling the other day. I was looking at the Bitcoin price. I'm like, wow, man, this is exactly the price I started buying per door in Arizona with Grant. And he told me 2.5 years later, hey, we're selling it for 80. I'm like, no, don't sell it. We're selling that property. I wish we'd have never sold any of that stuff.
Yeah. He'll say the same thing, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said for just collecting assets, great assets in great locations, just hanging on to them, letting them pay themselves off, refinance your investors out and just keep them long-term, because eventually 20 years, 30 years, they pay themselves off. And then you get to the point where you got so much cash flow coming in, you just use that to keep acquiring and just keep building.
Well, and especially his setup. I mean, I think he actually really helped me a lot. And we don't do much business together at all, but he opened my eyes up to how connected the planet was becoming. Really, I mean, when he first told me after, I don't know if you know this story, but we were together yesterday, and he was like, I had such a violent response to someone saying I should go on Facebook, thinking it was below me. This was 12 years, 10, I don't know however long ago. but he had such a violent response. As soon as the guy left, he remembered the guy's name, actually. He went in his door and got on Facebook and signed up for an account, because he's like, hey, my reaction is overly emotional. Why am I saying that's right? And he really dug his heels in, and that's where this massive following came. Zero competition for him. I mean, he was the guy doing it. Lopez and some other people, right? But for his age, it was a really great catch.
Yeah, he started at my age, 55. I'm 56. So yeah, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. You know, it was, 10 years ago. It was when he first, really 10, 11 years ago, when he first started getting online and doing that daily live show and podcast and all that.
Yeah, driving me crazy. I mean, like, he was driving me nuts. I was like, what the fuck is Facebook, dude? Get off that.
And everybody thought you're him, right? You can't go anywhere with, hey, Grant.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, more on the business front, though, because other people would see him. I'm dealing with the most corporate of corporates in the world. And then back in, Grant, wasn't aware that all of this was stored forever. And he would say some things that are pretty goofy looking back on it. And so it would cause me problems, because people would be like, yeah, we're not going to be doing business with the Cardones, dude. Like, you look too similar. I mean, like, quite a bit too. It was phenomenal how much, and the more popular he became, the more it happened. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, cool. Well, let's talk about Bitcoin. So yeah, you were buying Bitcoin, what, 20 grand? And yeah, you're buying apartments for 20 grand a door.
Yeah, I think we were buying for 27, and it was 27. I said, yeah, I'm just going to keep buying this stuff, dude. Like, I don't care. I'm not going to find the bottom. I mean, I think the market will find the bottom, and I think the traders will tell us the bottom is in. But I'm just not disciplined enough or smart enough to leave 200, what would that be? $7 million sitting in the sideline waiting to be deployed into the bottom of the, how do you do that, right? You don't do it. It's impossible. That's why Michael Saylor's, every quarter he spends off cash, they just DCA in. And no one's going to give a toss in 7 years. Like, I think you and I spoke about this, right? There are 400,000 ultra wealthy people. This is my new metric right now. And this isn't my data. There's 406,000 ultra wealthy people. And I think this is the absolute best argument to debate a 5-year hold into Bitcoin. That it's virtually impossible that you would lose. Okay. And this is my thesis, not advice, but thesis. With 400,000 people with a worth of $50 million at least. Okay, now we got to also think, hey, there's going to be some billionaires in there. There's going to be a few trillionaires that make that up. Okay, there's a lot of money. $50 million is actually not that much. This is an average. So let's say that all 400,000 families, now that Mr. Gensler, God praise you, thank you for validating in public a number of different times recorded events. In the same week that Larry Fink did exactly the same thing, the CEO of BlackRock, who two of the most influential financial players on the world stage today, both said Bitcoin is an asset class. They not only said asset class, didn't say asset, said asset class and sustainable in the same sentence. A sustainable asset class. Now, asset class is not a term that most of the people listening to this will have ever heard. You might think you've heard it, but you really heard about class, inventory, or assets, liabilities. Asset class is a word, right? And there's $800 trillion, as you know, in various asset classes. Up till 2 weeks ago, when Gensler said that word, there was bonds, equities, commodities, gold, stuff like that, debt, real estate, both commercial and resi. What else is there?
Fine art.
Fine art. Okay, there's about
Collectibles.
what other?
collectibles, you can sum that, but those are alternative assets, real estate, fine art, collectibles like cars, antiques, antiquities, those are all alternative assets.
So those are 800 trillion asset class. There's about 8 verticals, I think, 8 or 10 verticals. And now you have Gensler saying BTC is an asset class. Well, I actually think if we think about this, for sure he said it's an asset. And I actually think BTC is the only asset class of all 11 that the product inside the asset class itself is the only asset. Like, I am not putting Dogecoin in Bitcoin's asset class. Okay, personally, I think Gensler's doing that, and that's cool. But my point is, just look at BTC. It's a very unique asset class in that it is truly finite by algorithmic code. It's not all deployed. You cannot, the price is not, if the price went to $1 million, you cannot accelerate the production of the Bitcoin. Unlike gold, silver, oil, natural gas, uranium, man, you name it, dude, you pay enough money for something, you can get it. Okay, you'll have people at $5,000 an ounce melting their teeth. I mean, like that's what gold and silver are like 50% of the gold market, gold. So Gensler and Fink have both used, hey, they went to a school somewhere, okay? Someone wrote this script. Go look at it. They use the same words in the same sentence. So if 400,000 people have to buy $2.5 million, that's 37 million Bitcoin at today's price. At tomorrow's price, it's a shitload more. Well, no, it's a lot less. So
maybe that's without ETFs coming into the game, and now every registered investment advisor, every wealth manager, every fund manager out there, pushing and allocating, because they will talk people into allocating to that space, just like they have the general public convinced you never sell a stock. You just keep buying, you keep, like you said, you just keep buying no matter what, you keep buying. And that's why the markets haven't really gone down and didn't go down much further in October, is because the average 401k IRA, they did not sell. They've been conditioned by the dip, stay in the market. You got to play the long game because it always goes up. You can't time the market. So those same people are going to convince everybody you've got to allocate to this asset class because it's an exponential asset. And what does that mean? What do I mean when I say exponential asset? It's the only exponential asset. A couple of stocks were exponential off the bottom of 2020, but exponential means Bitcoin can 20x, it can 40x. I mean, it started from zero, which all stocks start from zero. So you could argue the same thing with stocks, and then they're listed and they're exponential, but it's just, you get big gains. You get those 10x's, 20x's, 40x's. I don't know that we'll get that from this price point anytime soon, but if it goes down to 3,000 or 4,000, you get a big economic event like it's done, 2 times in the last 4 years. You could see another 20, 30, 50x, if it goes down that low. I mean, that's exponential and it happens quick.
Yeah, look, your point on they're going to talk people into this asset class. I actually think it's not even going to be a conversation, because I think the way this works is if you're a pension, a government, an allocator of capital into pools of risk, that's the way they look at it. They need to round that out, right? Now, to add to my thesis on why I would be excited about this particular asset class at this time is, one, I have regulatory clarity that it is an asset class. I am so much safer than I was 4 months ago. It's unbelievable, okay? Regulatory risk on me holding this asset today is remarkably different than it was literally 4 months ago. In fact, probably less than that, but let's just go with it. If you have 400,000 people who have to deploy, they have to deploy, okay? This is game theory now. The pension itself is going to sit there and go, I cannot afford to let CalPERS do this, and they go get a 14% return in their fucking fund, and I'm still at 6.5, which is underperforming. So they have to allocate some of this. They've been given clearance. Like, this is a blessing from the Pope, man. Go, young men. Go out and invest in Bitcoin. That is my view, okay? The last 3 years, people have been saying, This is one of the few opportunities in mankind's history that it could front run the big money. It's taken them 2 or 3, 4 years to get their processes down so they could be prepared to do this. So I think it's all coalescing, right? Like it's going to happen this year. I think it happens 2023. You have the European Union putting together their entire digital team now for change. So if you just run through the math, there's 52 to 60 million millionaires, dude. If they only deploy $2,500, I should actually figure out a way to put this in a pie chart. I'm so stupid though. $2,500 of all the millionaires. Does that seem like an appropriate allocation to you? I mean, would you think I was overly aggressive with $2,500 and I have a net worth of, call it $2.5 million, is the average millionaire? Is that a decent allocation or too low, too high?
Probably a little low.
Yeah, exactly. I think way low. Okay. $2,500 one time, not recurring purchases, not annual one time. We need 5.7 million Bitcoin at today's price. So you need 34 for the high net worth guys. I'm quite certain they're all going to do 2.5. I got a lot more than 2.5. And there's going to be some sheiks out there. They need 2.5 billion just to get interested, right? Otherwise, they'll just go to casino and gamble, or build infrastructure in their own little cartelled environment.
And see, that's probably the biggest risk to Bitcoin right now, is that there's just not enough out there for somebody like that to buy. I mean, if you want to buy $100 billion, where are you going to go?
It is my biggest concern about Bitcoin. Liquidity. I don't know. I have loved how long this has taken, because I actually think this is good for us. It would be good for us if we could hold the legacy world out for another couple of years. Because I think, and the maxis that, I don't know why you guys hate me, man, but all I'm saying is that you don't understand how business works. If all this converted tomorrow, Bitcoin would fail so grossly badly, it would be ridiculous. It's a truly global market. You cannot turn all this back on, or turn it off, and then turn it on. Anything. You can't digest it. So anyway, that's my thesis for why this is cool, because this money has not been deployed yet. I bet you only 12% of this high net worth stuff is deployed. About 12-15%
into the space.
Into
Bitcoin specifically.
Bitcoin, blockchain, that whole industry.
Yeah.
And by the way, now, like I was just talking about Bitcoin, but when you start talking, see, this is what venture and private equity has been doing, not private equity, but venture and families.
Yeah.
Because they weren't okay with Bitcoin. How distorted is this shit, right? They couldn't get anybody comfortable with Bitcoin. So they started buying FTX shares. Okay, that tells you how they're gagging to get into the market.
Oh yeah, Coinbase, MicroStrategy, Grayscale, and that's the thing with ETFs. So it's going to be interesting to see what they actually do to the space, because what that's going to, once you get the ETFs, now you're going to have swaps, you're going to have derivatives, you're going to have options. I mean, you're going to have all kinds of stuff, coming off of that. It's going to be interesting to see where the money actually goes when those happen at the big levels.
Yeah, and how trackable. See, I'm interested in how traceable and trackable they're going to be. How does, I don't know. I'm quite certain that, I don't know if you saw the news on JP Morgan, but Jamie Dimon saying, hey, Grayscale is going to get it. See, that makes sense to me, that Grayscale would get it with BlackRock. I mean, I think I would just give it to everyone, but I think you need Grayscale and MicroStrategy to help. Like, where's all this shit going to come from? See, my point is, I just showed you 42 million Bitcoin that are required to move the needle for these families. Like, a wealthy guy is not going to deploy. Like, if you came to me with the best deal in the whole world and said, hey, I need 25 grand, I would literally just give you the 25 grand. Go, do not send me a K1. Okay, if for you guys that don't know what K1s are, they're little pieces of paper you get from the guy you invested with every year, and you got to file it with the tax man, and then you got to chase the guy. If you got 30 of these, you got to chase 30 people for my K1s. It's a pain in the ass. Big families, dude. Somebody worth $300 million, they're gonna be like, yeah, I'll do 2.5 million, or I won't do anything. And then they're in the game, right? So I there's no doubt in my mind that those guys come here and they won't care what the price is. I ran it at 27, but they'll be here if it's 57. If it was 107 today, they'd show up because they have no choice. Like, this is too much money. And there's 800 trillion of it. This has been Saylor's deal the whole time. He's like, he understands how big corporates work. So I think it's just like, I continue to try to get challenged why this thesis is wrong and what could go wrong. I think if it was going to go wrong, it probably should have. And that the max pain I can suffer is I have a day, month, year, maybe even a couple years where I'm really underwater. But to your point, I never think about liquidating my 401k ever. In fact, most of them won't even let you do it. You have to withdraw the whole thing, right? Hey, I want to put some shorts on. We don't do shorts, dude. We're only long 401k. That's what the employer is doing for their little employees. They love them so much. They don't even take the time to research what they're forcing their employee, and then making the employee feel stupid when he wants to hold Bitcoin. Like, dude, I can understand that quite easily. So what is you are long-term bullish Bitcoin?
Yeah. And I think in the short term, there's obviously volatility out there. The price right now, rolling around 25, 26, looks like it wants to drop back down and check 20 again. And if that doesn't hold, it might drop back down and, retest that 15.5 low. And as long as the equity markets hold up. So here's the thing with all of that, and Bitcoin's a commodity, it's like a gold, it's a store of value, but it's a risk asset in terms of how it trades. So, there's the white paper, what it was created for. It was created to be money. It was created to, be peer-to-peer, trustless, exchange of value. That is not the use case for Bitcoin as we know it today. Right now, it's a risk asset. People trade it and they speculate on it. So as long as other risk assets, the stock markets are holding up, Bitcoin's going to hang on. If we get an event, and if you have if Tether fails, if Binance fails, you'll get a little bit of a reaction to that. In the short term, price will dip. Who knows how far it'll go? It just depends on how much gets liquidated when all that happens. If it ever dropped low enough where Michael Saylor got liquidated, he would have to sell, at some point. A lot of people have been talking and waiting for that. So there are some events, but again, we've seen where price has gone to the last 2 times in 4 years, 3,000 and, the bottom of 2018, 2019, 4,000 during the pandemic. So you've got your 2 low markers there. I don't think it would get below that because the markets aren't going to go much lower than 50% of where they are now because, the Fed will step in at that point. They'll let the markets go down 50%, but they're not going to let it go down much less than that because we saw them backstop it in 2009 at like 40, 50%. We saw them backstop it in 2020. So, it's in regards to a risk asset in short term, yeah, it can have some price volatility, it can go down. But at this level, you gotta be pretty confident it will always get back to at least that 20 to 30,000 level. Will it get back to the 60 to 100,000? It never, it hasn't gone to 100 yet, but will it get back to 60, 64? I mean, it's gone there before. There's going to be a lot of sellers on the way when it gets back there. So it may not be as easy as everybody thinks, but the ETFs will help because that's going to drive a lot of hype into the space. A lot of people are banking on the halving helping price action, but halving is a narrative that you got to get a lot of people believing in that narrative for that to take effect. And a lot of people have left the space. I mean, a lot of people have lost everything, in the last couple of years in this space. I hear from people all the time that lost their entire life savings and they just couldn't take it anymore and they sold, on the way down. And, they're not coming back. So now it's,
they should have never been here. They should have never been here in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm sorry for those people, but our politicians in our schools should be ashamed of themselves that you have people that could go into these markets, grown-ups, go into these markets chasing a dream and be so foolish.
Yeah, but it's not just here. So, this happens in the stock market, same thing. It happens in real estate. There's a lot of syndicators right now, or people that invested in syndications where the syndicator overpaid. They got short-term bridge debt or interest-only debt. So now those loans are in default and they're getting wiped out. I heard from a guy the other day that had somebody that invested $100,000 and, he signed the subscription agreement. The subscription agreement, for anybody that doesn't know, that's, all your disclosures, that's telling you can and probably will lose your money. So you sign off on that. You say, yes, I know I can and probably will lose my money. I've talked to my advisors. I've talked to my attorneys. I've reviewed the documents. I know I can lose my money. And this person, is freaking out because they lost their last $100,000. And it's like, why did you put your only $100,000 into this deal? When you knew you could lose it. And now they want to sue, people just do that kind of stuff because they just see that lottery ticket and they don't think anything goes down, and rightfully so. So early in my career, right, we talked about that the other day. I went through, the .com bubble, and I saw what happened there. I saw people winning on the way up, and I saw them get wiped out on the way down. And then in 2008 and 9, same thing with real estate. From the 2000s to 2009, everything was just up, and I didn't think real estate would ever crash. I didn't think prices would ever come down. I thought, man, they ain't making any more of it. It's scarce.
Right.
There's only one oceanfront lot. There's only so much oceanfront. There's only so much slope front. That's the kind of stuff that I was dealing with. There's only so many, corners on Wall Street, and Manhattan that people want to be in. They're just not making any more. But, the price you pay is permanent. The financing is temporary. And that's what drives values, markets, and things like that. And I just didn't realize all that during the boom. It just seemed like everything. So I can understand how people get into this and they think, man, it's just never going to go down. It's always going to go up. So I can understand that. But at the same token, you got to pay attention to what's going on in the economy and the macro, economic environment. And you got to, when you're in risk assets, you can't invest more than you're, able to lose, willing and able to lose, not just willing to lose, but willing and able to lose.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Willing and able. Yeah. Well, I think one of the problems with Bitcoin's price has been you have not had new money coming in. You need these institutions. You need the high net worth families coming in here and getting married to the product. They drive the banks. The banks will sell us whatever the hell we want. Okay. If we wanted lemonade, Kool-Aid, dude, on a Sunday, Goldman Sachs would make it available if we were willing to pay the price for it. So that's their job. I commend them for that. The volatility in this, I actually think the volatility goes up. So it needs more professional players who understand this. They're in it for the long term. But I do think it's going to get volatile. And I think many of the people that are still in this game, if they're not careful and they're trading a bunch of tokens, they're going to get slaughtered. I mean, they have never actually seen tokens weaponized by professional traders. Professional traders that work for really big firms, like the companies I would work for, like we have a charter, right? And I can only, like, let's say I'm trading a huge book on nat gas and electricity. I don't have the authority to go buy $1 billion worth of crude oil. I can't just go flip over into the next neighborhood and go, hey, I want to go play with this. And so I think that's why we've seen people from high net worth go into some of these FTXs and get stung, something awful. And you've had a bunch of small players, domestic players who are really a lot of degenerate gamblers. And you guys gave the term out, degen. Literally the word means, a gambler, right? A degenerate losing gambler. And we throw that term around. I'm just going to give it back to the community and go, hey man, I don't know many successful, long-term, really rich degens. Okay, long-term, operative word there. Okay. Oh, Sam Bankman, man, he was flying high, dude. He was Mr. Wonder Boy for about 9 months. So anybody can fly a kite. Okay, the question is, can you actually fuel an airplane and sit in the back of it and support a whole company and survive when there's turbulent times? And very few people, if you get hung out, man, my old saying, dude, if you're sweating your position, it's too fucking big. And I have sweated a lot of my life. I mean, I'm sharing this not out of like looking down at anyone, but like going, hey, Gary, like I need a coach like Greg. dude, is your position size too big? What are you worried about? Like sometimes I need somebody, Gary, is your position size too big? Because you are worrying unnecessarily. I said that to a buddy of mine just the other day. Comes over, he's all nervous. I'm like, what the fuck are you worried about, bro? I said, there must be a problem. And he's like, I got this little thing, right? I can't control it. So, and literally he said, I got out of my lane. It was actually a woman, but I got out of my lane and I went into, I just deviated a little bit because he wanted a little bit more action. Well, he's got a little bit more action now. That happens to every profession, right? Do you know anyone that's been in business for 20 years that hasn't made sometime almost life-threatening mistakes?
No, I mean, all of them. All of them.
That's why I love my pronoun anti-fragile, because I've been through so much shit, man. If you couldn't kill me or make me go broke by now, like I just don't even think it's possible at this point. I think I can actually withstand. I mean, the things I couldn't withstand are the human things, right? Like my kids getting hurt, or that would be really painful.
Yeah, but you get wiped out. It's just stuff, it's things. And, we've got the experience now. We can start over anytime, anywhere and do it all over again. I mean, you're not trading anymore because of, like you said, the stress and, that type of stuff. But if you had to, if you got wiped out, you go back and trade again and make it all over again.
Well, the reason I'm not trading is because I hate the life. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
but you could do it again if you had to, and you needed to make money fast. You could jump right back in it.
I look at it every now and then. I go, hey, look, my return on Bitcoin's shit right now. I could have been trading the F out of this thing and I'd swing some weight, man. I mean, I'd move 20, 30, 40, 50 Bitcoin, not even think about it. Cause you're just run like, do you have any idea what a covered put, let's say a guy knows he's going to buy, he's going to keep buying, whether it's 17 or 37, he's going to keep buying. That guy is really well positioned to sell a put to someone if he knows he's going to buy it anyway. I'd be interested to know what a $20,000 put would be for like 50 Bitcoin. If there's even a market out there, give it to like maybe March 31, 2024. I'll bet you that thing. I mean, I've seen in the money options run 10%. Now that may not be enough, right? But if you could get, let's say 20 grand, it's at 27. If you could get $3,500 for a put at 20 grand, would you sell that? Because you said you like 20.
Yeah.
Now your cost base is 16.5. If you get hit, and if they don't hit you, you got $3,500.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a bunch of options that trade out there, right? Or do you know?
Yeah, I really don't know.
Yeah. Well, if anybody knows out there, let me know. Okay. I would love to know what a $20,000 put would cost for, call it 10 Bitcoin. Expiration is March 31. Now, if you're a long-term hodler like me, and hey, I'm going to be buying these anyway, because I get frustrated when I bought at 28, bought at 27, bought at 26, and I know I will continue doing it. And I actually like it, which tells you my position size is not wrong. See, I love this. Okay, it's just so beautiful that I don't have to come up with a bunch of cash at one time and make that one fatal mistake. I get to do it, as cash comes through the door. I'm not burning my past, I'm burning some future. And you look at that and you go, well, if I'm tired of getting beat up to 27, maybe I should sell some puts because I'm gonna probably buy it at 20, right? Anyway, I think this is a great space, man. It's for any person who's disciplined. Like you could stay busy 10 hours a day just learning. I feel like I know nothing about the space.
Let's jump into that in a sec. One thing, so going back to your Shake guy, he's got $100 billion he needs to allocate. Does he feel better when Bitcoin's with that allocation, does he feel better allocating it 100,000 a coin or 20,000 a coin?
I don't think he cares. He doesn't care. Now, he doesn't care. He's like, hey, let's go. He has to deploy capital. There is so much money on this planet, man. I don't know if I ever told you this story.
Let's unpack that real quick. Well, go ahead. Go ahead with the story.
So I think it's relevant. You were at my house, and so I have a big house, okay? I might have a little little tiny thing, because my house is really big. And I only say that because it's actually a much bigger house than I would ever buy. I do not need this. But I bought this house in October 2020 when the whole world was at zero. There was about 10 homes here. It was very clear to me, my God, dude, I should buy every one of these homes. There was 8 of them, okay? They're multi-million-dollar homes. I would have doubled my money on every one. I do the deal. I then call the bank I called the bank and I said, hey, what could I borrow on this? And I did not expect to get the answer I got, but it was basically like 140% loan to value at 3.25. And it would have been stupid and irresponsible for me not to buy that. I mean, freaking, like, I'm signing the documents at the table. There's 5 bankers there. 3 of them are salivating because their commission's going to get paid. And as soon as I signed it, I looked up to 2 senior guys and I said, have you guys run out of really, really rich people? And both of them, one's name is Duncan, love the guy because he's an honest guy. He said, yeah, man, we've run out of really rich people. And which means the sheik, he is at max consumption. He has literally, he has bought every airplane, hooker, villa, country, island. Like, you get to a point, like, man, I don't need anything else. Bitcoin comes along. Woo, I got a new toy I can buy. He doesn't care. 27. What he'll look at is, are you telling me there's only 10 of these Rolexes on the planet? I'll have them. That's why I keep coming back to this 400,000. This market's never seen this. This 400,000 high net worth individuals have been given the green light. Okay, these are Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and they've been given the green light on the track, and they're all going to hit the fucking accelerator. And I'm quite certain of that. They have to. They have no other place to put their money.
So let's unpack
store value. And I actually think this is a store value. The main reason for this product, Bitcoin, has been a store value, and the most of the investors in it, because I think it might have sounded like you said something different earlier. I think 70% of the investors that are in Bitcoin are in it for one reason, and it's store value.
Yeah, absolutely. Store value, appreciation. There is a small group that's in it for the original use case, the white paper, money. They, use it as money. Some people think that it's going to be world reserve currency. Some people think that, currencies will be backed by it or pegged to it or whatever. I don't see that as a realistic. In my view, I just don't see how that's realistic, because governments, the superpowers aren't going to give up power and authority and control to a decentralized network that they have no control or no say over. They're just not going to let that happen. They're not going to stop us from trading with each other. Some countries they can ban it, they can try to do whatever, but they're definitely not going to allow, Bitcoin to become some sort of a reserve currency in any of the leading, G7 countries.
I think it's just a matter of time. But I mean, there's going to be an awful fight. G7 is breaking apart. They can't control the G7 right now. I'm going to push back a little bit on that. What I am certain of is the US dollar will lose its global dominance sometime. Okay, just stop there. Don't even talk about Bitcoin. Yeah. Does the US dollar at some point fail? Well, if you said no, then you would be betting against about 3,400 other currencies that thought they were big swinging dicks, and they all went down also. And it should be safe to remind all the audience, mostly the US citizens, who have not studied history very much, sadly, that our country, in population terms, other than our military arm, pales in comparison to those empires. Pales, man. Okay, great. We're a big commercial world. We consume a bunch of Cheerios and Fruit Loops and automobiles and watches, but like, go back to the Egyptian dynasty, man. These people were rolling, right? And they had tokens, and then they had gold, right? So all of these countries have lost their dominance, their control, their monarchy structure, or their oligarch. They all lose. We have more freedom today than we've ever had on the earth. I believe that we have more freedom.
So I agree with you that it is possible. So it's possible that, take everything else out of the equation, that the US dollar loses reserve status at some point somehow. That's a possibility. Like, a lot of things are possible. The question is, how does that happen?
Well, I would actually say
that, because hold on one second. So there's global trade around the world that has to be, you got to peg it to something so that everybody understands what is the real value, because it almost means nothing for, well, I've got my dollar, you've got your euro, and we're going to trade this thing, and I'm going to value this in my dollar, you're going to value it in your euro, but over here they're valuing it in pesos or Deutschmarks or francs, or so you got to have some understanding around the world what a real fair value of something is. So what do you peg that, what does that peg to?
Well, are we sure that the peg is the right way to look at it?
I don't know.
Yeah, see, just because, I'll bet you we didn't have pegs 3,000 years ago, because there was no global commerce, really, right? You'd show up with gold.
Well, okay, so maybe peg's not the right word. So maybe the right word is, I don't want your currency because I can't count on it. It does me no good. Okay, most of the countries in the world don't want all other countries' currencies because it does them no good. The one currency everybody wants, even the people that talk bad and hate it and all that, is the dollar. Even the countries that are trying to get away from it, they're storing a whole lot of it because it's accepted everywhere. So that's what I'm saying. You got to have something that is an exchange, and that's where the Bitcoin, theory comes in, that, hey, that can be acceptable across borders, but governments aren't going to rely on that for.
They should have globalized them. See, if they didn't want this decentralized community that's getting ready to pop up, what I call the virtual country, the sovereign nation, true sovereign nation, has nothing to do with the soil under my feet. It has to do with my sovereignty as a soul, right? As a living human being and a right to do things. I think I'm starting to meet a lot of people. I met you here through this little new metaverse, right? And oh wow, we're also having common interests, and there's millions of us all of a sudden getting connected at a cyber level, but it's no less meaningful to me at a cyber level than it is in a bar at 12 o'clock at night. Can't even hear the person, right? So I just think
we're not trying to conquer each other and take each other's property either. We're trying to collaborate and, move the ball forward.
Yeah, the reason I bring all that up though is that I don't think any countries has ever had this problem. You have what, 30 people that are nearly worth $1 trillion. That changes everything. Okay, that's like being on the chessboard and being the king, and all of a sudden just 8 other chessboards show up and their king's a lot bigger. Okay, and these people could literally deploy $800 million into a marketplace to just start it and still be fine. Like you can't even, you don't even know what. Well, somebody bought Twitter for $44 billion when it was 22, and I think the guy's going to end up making a fortune out of it. I think it'll be one of his best deals, Twitter, and it's going to be a lot more than a social media site, right? So the governments haven't ever had. They're being faced with decentralized media now. Well, if propaganda has been holding up fake governments through media for years, for decades, what does decentralized media do to that construct? When you see people like Tucker Carlson and Andrew Tate all of a sudden becomes a superstar human being, almost a martyr. You see Trump got elected because of the social. So, I'm saying, I think it's a very different world. Stable coins might be what we end up using.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. A stable coin, whether it's a CBDC or whatever, that makes a lot of sense. So on that note, Bitcoin's exciting, use cases, a lot of potential. What if Bitcoin becomes irrelevant? So you talk about exciting, activity in the space, it's an exciting space, blockchain, the space in general. What if Bitcoin, we just completely forget about that because we don't even know what's coming in this space right now. We can't even comprehend where the space is going with blockchain technology, the overall decentralization of everything. I mean, we're not even thinking about what's coming down the road. I mean, to me, that's what's exciting about this space. I was on a space the other day, and this one guy was saying, yeah, he was all kind of discouraged. Yeah, it's been such a terrible bear market. I've been through 2 cycles. I think I got maybe 1 or 2 left, and that's going to be it. And I'm like, dude, you've got 20 left. I'm like, we're just scratching the surface. I'm like, Bitcoin is just one infinite, minuscule little point in time in an immense universe of exponential growth potential in a space that we don't know anything about. We have no clue what's going to be done in this space and what the capabilities of blockchain are right now, and AI and all these other things.
Yeah, and even saying that he only has a couple of turns. See, I don't even get that, because I look at this and go, hey, look, this industry could employ me. It could employ him too. Why would you just look at this as a carnival show you go to once a week? This is a whole multi-trillion-dollar industry that people have the ability to get on the ground floor. I mean, truly the ground floor.
That's the thing, because it's an industry where the tunnel vision is trading, some Bitcoin, some altcoins. They're trading for today. They're not seeing the exponential nature of the industry.
Yeah. Well, people ask me, hey, why did you move into Node 40? Why did you do so much? And I'm like, wow, let's see. I get access to the digital asset world at a really granular level. And I reduce, if not eliminate, all my underlying commodity risk, the price volatility. I have literally de-risked any kind of regulatory. If they could change the rules tomorrow, I'm still going to be okay as a company. If anything, the regulations are going to probably help me. And I'm not reducing my downside, my upside. I've actually limited my downside, and I have an exponential upside and 2 pivot points into the same industry, because my investment in Bitcoin only works at a perfect level if we digitize planet Earth, right? And we really let that happen without censorship.
Explain what that means. So you talk about the digitization of everything a lot. So what does that mean to you when you say digitize everything on planet Earth?
Well, if I would have told you in 2000 that you would have 4 music apps on your telephone, okay, I'll bet you $1 that you've got 4 music apps on your telephone that you either downloaded or were downloaded for you. And I found that to be phenomenal, because Apple, the very phone that you own, created the iPod, entirely disrupted the music industry, along with Nasper. Had the phone sitting on your, the music pods, dude, they were the creators, yet I use Spotify. And I pay for 3 other apps, right? Well, how did that happen? It's not how did it happen that Spotify grabbed me. It's how did Apple let that happen? If I would have told you Apple would have let somebody, not somebody, but 3 or 4 players sneak in under their fucking skirt, get on their telephone, and provide the very same music that Apple was providing to that consumer, and the consumer liked it more and would use the telephone and that app, I think you would have said, come on, you're crazy. Nobody's that stupid. So that's my way of saying, let's agree that we have no clue what the future is getting ready to bring. No clue whatsoever. We have always underestimated change, okay? And we overestimate how quickly change happens. It's slow as shit until it's not. And then you're like, shit, man, I've got Netflix, I've got Prime, I've got Apple TV, I've got YouTube. Man, everybody's charging me.
And then to your point, what happens along the way? Everything gets disrupted and expanded because, you know, it was Blockbuster and then Netflix, and Netflix, now they've been disrupted by everybody streaming now. And, you know, they're still doing well, but, you know, now
I wouldn't give you a penny for Netflix. But like Netflix, it looks like Blockbuster to me.
right.
Exactly. Like once Disney, look at what Disney did. Okay. Disney so underestimated the future that they gave all their content to Netflix. They almost, Disney, if you guys study, like I study markets and history, Disney almost lost their entire empire because they literally gave Netflix all their content for like, I can't remember how many years. The moment they took it away, I'm like, oh, Netflix, done it. And now they're on, what are they having to do? A spending binge with the likes you've never seen before, spend $100 million on a series, right? And then give it to you for free. That's not a business. It's just not a business. And I'm pretty sure I can buy TV digital stuff in the future from somebody cheaper. I do it already. Like, when we have a real recession, people are going to start disconnecting their, including guys like me and you. I'm not going to pay for music things. I'm not going to pay for Netflix lookalikes, right? And this is one of the things I think you and I can do that is the most important thing for us to do is, okay, good, go vote and vote for whoever you want. But the real vote should happen right now, today. You have the ability to go to the ballot every day. I just go down, I want to hold an exercise on one of these spaces. Everyone has to bring their budget for the month to the spaces. And we're going to just go through all the shit that we buy from enemies, dude. The amount of money we give on credit card subscriptions, and we're literally funding the enemy. People that are trying to trap us, sell us masks, shoot stuff in our veins, right? Literally, we're like, all we got to do is cut it. Stop just 10% of it, okay? In 90 days, two quarters, the results would show up so substantially. You would see an Anheuser-Busch moment across 100 companies. They're already vampires anyway, right? They are vampires now. I mean, that a company sells me something for these companies and they know I never access it and they keep tagging my credit card. I never use any of the other music services. It's cool. I agreed to that in a contract that I didn't read. But I think when a recession comes, people start looking at stuff. Hey, what is disposable? We are still over consuming stuff. Way. Back to my point on electricity. So I kind of got off on a tangent there. I think what I was saying is that I think this can happen. You know, change happens real slowly, and then you have an event. And we now have four or five markets evolving that I just think the US dollar is not going to be as pervasively convincing as it once was. I would like to get off. See, I have too much exposure to the US dollar. I do. And that's one of my reasons for Bitcoin. Like, I don't want to bet that the other 40 currencies are always going to be the worst currencies and that they're always going to be the only currencies. In fact, we just created a new one. It's called Bitcoin. I mean, if I could store some natural gas in my home, I would. Okay, if somebody would let me dig a storage, oh, dude, I would absolutely. Wouldn't you? You would too, wouldn't you? Like I said, oh, I'd love to buy a container nat gas. That's probably an industry, except the regulators won't let us do it. They won't even let me buy my own natural gas, put it in the ground, store it, and let me use it the way I want, right?
Well, let's keep it simple. Let's start with, you know, being able to bypass all the intermediaries and third parties in a transaction and just be able to use peer-to-peer, you know, stable coins, you know, Bitcoin, whatever, everywhere you go.
I think that's going to start happening between businesses much more frequently than people think.
That's what I'm waiting for. And that's where I see the biggest disruption. And I know your previous business, CB911, you know, I mean, at some point that company is going to be obsolete because I do think at the end, I think the credit card companies are going to be a thing of the past here soon. You're not going to need them.
Well, now that's interesting that you say that. See, in order for the US dollar to get disrupted, the credit card companies play an essential role in that adoption. It was interesting. I was on, I think Matt was making a comment yesterday about, some of the stuff that MasterCard and Visa are working on. Man, that was a really interesting comment, because if they do what they should do, which is take a part of this whole stablecoin game, they are extremely well situated to do it. They're probably thinking the Fed might want to do it too. So I think there's a lot of competing things going on right now. People don't even know, hey, am I going to be competing with the US government? Like, I'm a big believer in the whole CBDC thing and the Fed money. Like, under one condition. The citizens get to vote on it. Has to be on the public blockchain. There's only one blockchain you use, and it has to be on the public blockchain. Then it's cool. Come on in. Come on in, CBDCs. Government will never put this on a public blockchain, ever. Okay, they're going to probably have two of them. So it's not going to, you're going to have a choice. Government money that is not fully transparent, and then you're going to have some other, hopefully, Bitcoin. I think that's the way this works. But MasterCard and Visa are going to come into the space. But if you think that they could really get hurt, then the US dollar is going to, you're going to start to see contraction. And it's going to be contraction, right? A little piece here. Tell you a funny story. When I was in England, first 6 months I was there, a man who was a senior guy at British Gas, which was the company I was trying to do the deal with. He had been to dinner or lunch with me a number of times. He was much older than me, probably my age now, 20 years spread. And he said, I don't believe a word you say. He was just so condescending. We were at lunch. I don't believe a word you say. But your belief in yourself is really contagious. And like, he could not experience my thesis for the future in his world. He was just like, and we're having the same phenomena here in Bitcoin, really the same phenomena. I can't even see into that universe, but he was very attracted to how much I believed in it. And I think the belief we have from a whole set of players is that we want this to happen. We want honest money. So to your point on the digitization and how that plays into MasterCard and Visa, I think MasterCard and Visa experience this in terms of digitization. Porn, that is pornography for MasterCard and Visa shareholders. Pornography, okay, selling of dating services, prostitution, whatever y'all do in that pornography thing, pictures, videos, and gaming. Gaming and pornography are going to slip into digital BTC or other currencies for the very reason that you just talked about, chargebacks. And they're already digital. Like, the whole complex of a gaming company is digitized already. Why are they putting fiat into the system, right? It's just literally sticking metal on top of a smooth rubber tire and creating more friction than necessary. These guys will all move to tokens that are trackable and traceable. When that happens, you'll see Visa and MasterCard earnings seriously disrupted. That's my opinion, okay? And it actually will be a bellwether for, oh shit. Now, people think I'm a little crazy, but if you go find someone that's been in payments for a long time, like I have been, you won't respect what I say because I'm saying it from an outsider's viewpoint. Go ask them, hey, where did all the big money come from for Visa and MasterCard, especially in the beginning? It came from porn and gaming, okay? Gambling, gaming, like it all came. That's where most of these industries come out of. They come out of these use cases that are a little etchy, right? And then they move into mainstream. We're just moving into mainstream. When you see the gamers go, though, all you have to do is look at the amount of payment companies that are really looking at this space. Every one of them that are really aggressively looking at the space have a huge gaming portfolio. Every one of them. And they won't tell you, they also have an adult cycle, vertical that fits into their earnings. Same kind of customer, same type of an experience. They don't want chargebacks, and they're extremely sensitive to chargebacks. They're monitored by all the regulators and the card schemes in a different way, which I find to be fascinating, because legally they give them a merchant category code. There's about 20 or 30 merchant category codes. Sell retail, sell groceries, sell t-shirts, you sell pornography, guns, they all have different codes. And the problem for the old legacy world is they want to treat all of these transactions as if they're unique and they're not homogenous. Homogenous means they're all the freaking same. They're fungible. I mean, does a pornography transaction really stress Visa in a different way than a grocery store transaction? Really? Like at 350% more? And by the way, who's paying that? Joe consumer. So I think the beauty of blockchain and the digitization is that there's going to be a world over here that we can measure, like the use case for how we use Zoom and stuff. We're going to measure all of our experience. You and somebody on our team is going to go in and start diving into analytics on how much traction this video got. What did it cost us? How much was the time that we put into it? How many people saw it? What's the true cost? Donald Trump the other day had 216 million people look at his that ad he did. And that would have cost him $200 million in the old world, okay? It cost $2.69, I think, to get a click on Google. That's the average price. He got 216 million, okay? And also had like 15 minutes of time. 30-second ad on TV is about $15 a view. How many did he have? 200. So you don't think that didn't cost someone like CNN serious money? And if you don't think that every political analyst is looking at that going, whoa, dude, we're not spending money at CNN. We don't have the money. Like, people are not giving as much to us. So I think, Vivek, more people know Vivek today and wow, he went on 100 podcasts, man, and he did a decent job. I think he did a decent job. He was Donald Trump Jr. at the last debate. Donald didn't need to go there. Vivek was able to do Donald's work for him and ripped them all into shreds, I thought. So we just have a disintermediation of everything now. A decentralized marketplace that's mutating on top of a centralized market. And the centralization is that somebody can come in tomorrow and go, you're censored. That's our only risk now. Our only risk is they come in and you're censored. You need to wear a mask. Don't leave your house. You're censored. You're censored. Don't do that. Don't do that. That is our big problem. That, to me, that's the greatest risk to all my businesses and my family. It's the only thing I worry about.
Well, it's happening in other countries. Yeah, it's going to be a little tougher here, but yeah, I mean, they tried some of that, but it is happening in other countries. So let's talk about your.
But it's been happening in other countries, right? Like you look at Saudi Arabia. I mean, the women are getting more rights. The news is leaking out. China, that guy in China can't keep everybody off the World Wide Web. It's not possible. Okay, there's just too many of us.
Yeah, the people will win eventually. I
think so.
So let's talk about your shift into the blockchain space, Bitcoin, the blockchain space. So you came back from England. You got involved in Chargeback 911. Did you get involved in Node 40 before, during, or after that?
We formed CB 911 after. I was almost broke, actually. I actually had to borrow. I had to sell my 401k to fund Chargebacks 911. This is a story most people don't know. I think I sold my last $47,000 in cash. I'm a grown man at 10, dude. I'm 52. I'm white. 2012. It's so illiquid. It's stupid. And I knew we had a good business. I knew that at that moment, then I knew, okay, the chargeback piece. I hated the other businesses. I just abhorred them. But that 2 years of playing around with merchants and understanding the World Wide Web and how products move from production to consumption, it was really beneficial to me, but I really avoid business. I just not a day that I enjoyed. So 2012, we lit up CB911. I exited it in last year. I started investing my time and money into Bitcoin around 2016. Then bought some in 18. I think I bought some in 16 and 18. Then left it because I was so busy with CB911. That cost me 200 million. I mean, really, it's just, sometimes you can be in a business and like, the cool thing is I had the discipline not to take my eye off the core business. But now I look at it and go, whoa, I took my eye off the real core business. I just didn't have time to look at it. Sometimes it's probably pretty good. I think the lesson I learned there, hey, it's good to disconnect sometime and get some wind, go for a long walk and maybe look at things from a little different perspective. I got so close to the micro, the details, that I didn't see what was going on up here. It's not a mistake. It's just something to observe and go, and then started getting really bored in 2018 with the business because I knew where it was going. I was struggling with my partner, who was my wife, we had a governance issue. We had 2 kids. I'm starting to feel like, damn, I'm so trapped. I'm trapped in a $500 million business. I'm trapped in a marriage that's failing because the business has become more important to one of us. And for me, it's always been, it's just a game of poker. Okay. They're all serious games of poker to me, but it's a game. It's not life. It's not my children. So I spent 3 years studying blockchain and myself, really, and fighting to get my bloody kids back. That cost me. That's the best project I never talk about. I mean, absolutely best project I've never talked about. It's getting my children back. And really became extremely intellectually stimulated by the whole concept of blockchain and Bitcoin. I'm one of those guys that has been pulled into it. I think that you're pulled into this universe. It feels like I made a comment on our spaces a couple of days ago when the gravity that Bitcoin creates is absolutely amazing at how many people get jacked up about this subject, which is another indicator. Ooh, this is going to do something. There are going to be a lot of people that look back just like they are looking back at the mask and going,
like politics, you get a lot of people that are just, energized by it. You get a lot of people that are just totally put off by it. It's really interesting.
Which is funny because you're kind of like, hey, why are you so emotionally attached to the old legacy world? Like, what are you worried about?
They just don't understand it. People are afraid of what they don't understand.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, especially men. Men don't want to talk about what they don't understand. They don't want to ask questions about what they don't understand, and they're afraid of what they don't understand. So blockchain, what do you mean? What do you mean when you say blockchain? What are you talking about specifically?
I mean a technology that allows information to be stored on top of each other that's immutable. You can't change it. Let's say I sell you 10 Bitcoin tomorrow. That transaction is going to show me as a seller, you as the receiver of that product. It will track the history of that coin and everything that happened associated with that coin. Clearly not a technical answer. It's run by thousands of computers, making it extremely difficult for a naughty person to try to take control of it like they have taken control of other ledgers. Okay. The difference in this ledger is that every piece of information should be on the ledger. Like, I would love to see someone run for a political office. I don't care if you support Bitcoin or not. Put 30 or 40 or 50% of all government purchases on the public blockchain. What do I mean by that? An electronic ledger that is not changeable by one person. That's it, okay? It's just a ledger, man. It's a ledger, okay? It's an electronic ledger. You and I should be able to look into the government ledger. If I was running this country, you would be able to look into the government ledger, except for the security stuff and all the sensitive stuff. That's why I say 30 or 40%. Like, be very easy, okay? All administrative stuff. Get education, force education to get on the blockchain. Okay, and then we'll actually learn what the hell is going on over there. And we won't have the teachings change on a whim by a 27-year-old. I like that, see, but I don't have anything to hide. So I'm okay with people saying, oh wow, Gary owns 200 Bitcoin. Cool. Like, I don't have any problems with that. I don't have a problem with somebody being able to track my Bitcoin transaction. Because quite frankly, if I'm going to do something bad, I'm going to do it in dollars.
Well, they don't know it's you. So for people that don't understand blockchain, you can track that transaction, but they don't know it's you. You know, they'd have to tie it back to you some way. Your information.
They don't, but let's be careful, okay? The audience, because the audience has been told, hey, it's an anonymous transaction. That is not true. It is totally transparent. That's why I bought Node 40. We will find out who you are. Like I can get back to, oh, it's Gary Cardone.
Well, let's talk about that, because yeah, people think that, you know, you can be totally anonymous, you know, through blockchain, you know, through cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. So let's go back to, so now you're done with Chargeback 911, you've studied, you've decided you're going to get into space. Let's talk about how you came about Node 40, because that's an interesting conversation. Like literally, how did you decide you were going to buy this company?
Well, I'm going to take a break and grab a coffee while you're filling in the answer. Light me up. Give me 2 minutes, okay?
Yeah.
Thanks. Because I agree with you, it is a funny story.
Yeah. So we were talking the other day, and I was asking Gary, you know, how did you come about Node 40? How did you find Node 40? And he has this process that he goes through, and he's gone through his entire life. Whenever he comes up with a new business concept, a new business idea, or something like that, that he's going to take us through the journey of how he processes what it is he wants to do, and then how the company literally, you know, how he found the company, came to it, and then the process of the actual investment in the company and what that all looked like. So I was just basically telling him about our conversation we had the other day when I said, well, how did you come about Node 40? And what did you, yeah, there you go. Liquid death.
My buddy, Mark Yusko, I didn't know this, Morgan Creek Capital. Mark, if you're watching this, dude, I cannot believe you had the wisdom to buy into this company. Best water I've ever drank in my life.
Oh, it's awesome. I had some when I was at your house, and I'd never heard of it before. And people are like, what are you drinking? I don't drink, right? People are like, what are you drinking? I'm like, liquid death. It's water.
You know, I can't drink water. Every doctor, dude, you got to drink more water. I now finally will drink water because this tastes great. And I could walk in a bar. I wouldn't need to drink if I had this in my hand in a bar. I'd like it.
All right, so let's dig into it. We had that conversation the other day. I said, how did you come about Node 40? How does your investment process work? So,
well, I got two answers. There's a true answer that most people can't experience, and then there's the public facing answer. But let's go with the truth, huh?
Yeah.
How much time do we have? Okay, so I'm in the middle of a divorce, a painful one. Okay, like I've been divorced before, very easy. My ex-wives, hey, he's a cool guy, dude. We should never have got married. But none of us. In fact, none of us. I should never have got married. And I try to be hugely respectful, in all ways. So I mean, I'm hurt. Okay, I'm wounded like pretty bad. Questioning myself. You know, we built a $500 million. I had no less than 8 people offer me $500 million for this business. I wanted to get out. Was in the middle of settling. With it very complicated because you got kids, you got a big business. I mean, it's a big business, and with pretty high profile. And I said, well, what am I going to do? I'm 64, 65, you know, I have a comfortable life. I don't have any hobbies. I mean, I'm not like I've had 13 surgeries, so I'm kind of limited to I'm not going to become a great tennis player or a, weightlifter or, there's limits.
And to be clear, you didn't have to do anything. You could have just coasted the rest of your life and done nothing.
No worries. No worries. I mean, I had at that point, I had a lot of Bitcoin. In various derivative forms too. I mean, it's spread like I got a couple hundred Grayscale. People go, how much? Well, Grayscale? I think Grayscale is 200 Bitcoin. Right? So because I had to spread it, and for you maxis that think now I'm Satan again, like I didn't have a choice, dude. My personal financial situation, you start thinking, oh wow, the guy was married and a divorce. There's only so many things I can move around. So you really shouldn't be judgmental about what people are doing. I would have loved to have just bought Bitcoin, but it wasn't available to me. And furthermore, I've learned more by participating in some of these other games. I've learned that way. I don't learn on the sidelines.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here going, well, I can't possibly just sit here, smoke cigarettes all day and try to date at my age. What the heck am I going to do? And so I start writing. I know you're probably like, hey, this is a long story, but I start writing and go, what would it require for me to get really seriously engaged where I'm having to work like most other people? And I started writing it down. And this is the way every journey for me starts. Every journey in every business I've ever done or any serious thing I've ever done in my life, I start with a journal. Hey, what am I creating? And it's been extremely powerful for me. I don't really talk about it that much because, quite frankly, everybody I've ever talked to about it, they especially like investors. Hey, man, how'd you find Node 40? Well, dude, I sat down and.
No, I think this is huge. I think it's powerful because I'm going to sum it up when you're done with what you're doing. But go ahead.
So I wrote down every mistake. I said, you know what would be cool? Like, let's fix every error I've ever made in business. And if you're swinging around the course enough, you're going to make a ton of mistakes. Okay. Babe Ruth was the greatest strikeout artist of all time. And most people just remember him as the greatest home run hitter until Barry Bonds came. So I believe that you just got to keep banging on it. I wrote down a list of things. A man who worked at a large super bank for years would call me once or twice a year and suggest investment ideas. I would always listen to him because he's always a little at the end of the channel. He's one of those indicators for me. Hey, maybe don't go there right now anytime soon or even get close to it. I mean, his barometer is just consistent. And there are those people. You should know, hey, there are people that pick the bottoms. There are people that pick the tops. He said, hey, do you know about this deal? I said, hey, Bob, I told you I'm not interested in anything other than Bitcoin and blockchain. That decision I had made on the paper has to be in a new industry, has to be in blockchain or Bitcoin. It's the only thing that's going to hold Gary's little.
What were your other metrics?
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to, governance. I had to have total, utter, freaking crazy control over anything commercial. Now notice, I didn't say I have to have total control over the whole company. Nope. M&A, all our commercials, how we sell, what type of contracts we sell, when we exit, what money we take, and at what price. I think I'm better suited. Plus, I have $4 million in this deal of my own money. I think I'm actually given the opportunity and the right. Like, I have so much in on the deal that who else is going to make the decision, right? Someone has to make the decision. The problem I was trying to solve was, if that was my wife, we will never get to the decision. She's never, because what if she says, well, actually, I want to talk to KKR about taking their money. I'm like, well, I don't want KKR's money. What am I going to do? Kick her out of bed? I'm going to shoot her in the head. I'm going to make her leave the office, have the police grab. It's not real. That's why family businesses are so problematic when they get big. And I can tell you 10 stories of billion-dollar families that have destroyed their families and their businesses because of governance, what I call unenforceable governance. In our case, we had neither. We didn't have unenforceable or we were just.
Yeah, you had no charter.
Oh, we're a married couple. Isn't life wonderful? The other thing is her postulate for going into the business was very different than mine. Mine was, hey, I want to build a big old business and, walk away with $500 million. Her idea was, I want to build a company. I want to work with my husband and I want to go to work every day. And 15 years later, she's going to work every day, 20 hours a day. She's fulfilling her postulate. So what else was there? Like just key things on the business. It was really scalable. And it wasn't gonna like bury me. Like I don't believe in being owned by businesses. I just don't. Now, having said that, I don't do many of these. Okay, like I'm really, really concentrated. Someone told me once in England, I did a $500,000 investment in a deal, and the guy said, "Why would you do that much, dude?" And it went bad. Well, Phil, his name is Phil. Well, it was a lot, dude. I don't want to be just a ticket buyer. Like I want to be engaged. It's just not going to hold my attention. So those were the things. Oh, the last thing was I was partnered up with technologists, people that were very, very different than me. And those people, and this is some out of the pain of my prior experiences, those people on the technology side would not find me to be the creature that I had been told I was, that they actually valued what I brought to the table. Because in my old business, the message, and I'm not sure if that was right or not, but the message was, hey, stay away from Gary. His tech, he doesn't know anything about technicals and he scares people. And I still haven't met anybody that actually scared, that's honest and works hard. But I'm waiting for that intimidating little person to introduce themselves to me. Okay. So those are the things that I wanted to do. And I thought that if we could do that, I could replicate what I was attempting to do in CB911, which is to have 30 or 40 families really, really change their entire trajectory of the way they live, their generations. I mean, you start thinking about building these companies. I don't need another $50 million. It will not change my life. But, when the CEO and the founder, his wife comes up to me and said, dude, we love that you're our investor. You have helped our family and the company. Like I'm giving them some direction, right? Like you help your real estate, your doctors. Like when you said that, I'm like, man, I need a coach like that. What am I doing, dude? I'm so stupid. I'm so egotistical. I won't talk to somebody about all the shit I got on my plate. Well, this cat calls me up that I don't value his opinion. And he tells me that Node 40 is being hawked around Tampa Bay, a company in New York, literally being hawked 10 miles from here. I called them up. They said, hey, you can get on. This is a great message for any of you business development or sales guy. I call the cat up that's running the race. He takes my phone call. I said, hey, man, I want to know about Node 40. Well, man, you can join the webinar in 10 days. That really put me off. So my message to you guys is, hey, you might want to know who's calling you. And I told the guys, dude, I'm going to do the whole round. I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing $10,000. He was trying to raise 30 people. Right? This is the other reason. I'm like, Perry, you want 30 investors and $1.5 million, 50 grand each? They're betting on every circle on the roulette table. Okay. They don't care if your wife divorces you, dude. They'll just mark that one off and go, okay, what are the other 12 doing? Right? It's a game of numbers. He was raising too little money. The guy, I hung up on the guy after, couldn't have been more than 2-minute phone call. He was going to lunch, very important lunch, I'm sure. I go on LinkedIn. Hey, who is the CEO of who is the CEO of Node 40? Perry Wooden. I emailed Perry. No, I didn't even email him. I did it on LinkedIn. call me, 213-400. Somebody called me one day, hey, don't put your phone number on. Oh, okay, I guess that's a bad thing to do. Well, he calls me 20 minutes later. A week later, him and his partner are in my home for a week. He now will tell you, as soon as he had the phone call with me, I showed up, I'm trying to learn how to paint. And I show up in paint gear, man. I got paint. Perry goes to these technologists are freaks, right? And he goes to his technology buddy, 10-year co-founder, and says, dude, I think we found our investor. He's a really cool painter, artist, cool hippie cat, dude. He's doing all kind of weird shit. But Perry was like, wow, this is different than the other group. A week later, they were in my home. I made them stay with me, no hotels. Okay. And I wanted to discover, the other piece of thing, I am involved with some really good people. Not assholes, not people that turn into animals, not people that don't know how to delegate, and not people that want to trap people. Like, look, I've always had a pet peeve. Hey, if you're going to fire someone that's worked for you for 2 years, don't make up a story. Tell them why you fired. This has driven me crazy for years. So almost every person I've ever gotten involved with, when the business gets good, hey, Bob, our finances don't allow us to fund you anymore. So we're going to ask you to go ahead and go get another job because this isn't suiting you. We know what's good for you, right? And this is in our hearts. Instead of going, dude, you're a loser. You don't show up on time. You're not hitting your numbers. Next time, maybe you hit your numbers, right? And I think I have an obligation to tell people the truth so that they can improve, instead of some Kool-Aid story. So these cats show up. We do a whole strategy. Like, I didn't have to have an NDA. I didn't have to, hey, y'all I showed them what to do. Just to see, I said, this would be my strategy. I'd get rid of all your customers, all your small customers, and go after heavy institutional. I know what these companies need. Like, it's so odd because of my trading background. I know exactly what these people need. I've torn 5 products out of Node 40 that they never saw. Okay, and like I say this with tremendous respect to these people and any other inventors. When you're building something, man, you're building it to solve a problem, right? But you don't, like, if you haven't been out in the world and seen other things, like, remember the comment I made? Hey, chargebacks 911, just me focused on that business cost me 200. I couldn't focus on both. They're too big to, like, you had to, okay, I might have made the wrong turn. But like, I immediately looked at the tool and went, dude, this is a risk management tool. Every trader on the planet is going to use it. It was ugly. I mean, the UI on this thing is horrendous, but it's accurate to the penny, man. I saw 1 billion transactions being audited and accounted for, and they were settling down to 0.0003. I'm like, oh. And the Sean, who's the freak technologist, he would look at me and go, well, there's 0 and 1s, man. It's math. There shouldn't be a rounding here. Like, I've never seen anything at 0. Have you? It's always, big old port. It's pretty close, man, to 500,000. It's good to go, right? And I was like, whoa, down to the zeros. When they started showing me the granular ability, not how to, but like the reports, I was like, I've never seen analysis like this before. And here I am with not a deep technical understanding of anything. I mean, I understand blockchain slightly better than I understand God, but I don't think anybody understands shit, okay? Like, I'm pretty sure I don't understand anything about anything. So it gives me confidence to trust other people because I have no choice. But when I see something literally being resolved to 0, it's extremely complex. I could never do this. I've seen a bunch of spreadsheets in my life, okay? And I do not believe a spreadsheet can solve 1 billion transactions in a format that educates me without knowing the underlying problem. And I found that to be compelling. I found the people to be compelling. So literally, just to come full circle here, every one of these people I attracted into my universe. The The scary thing is I wrote it down and they showed up 3 weeks later. The problem with doing this is, one, it's really great for me that you asked me the question, because no matter if everybody listens to this, looks at me like you're a fucking idiot, I will be much more solidified in my understanding of how magic this works, because this has not just been one time for me. Like, I have done this 7 times, okay? No less than 7 times. Major moves, like going to work for natural gas clearinghouse. I was making 70 grand a year, man. In 1985, that was a lot of money, okay, for a 27-year-old kid, and would have gone to work for natural gas clearinghouse with 0. I knew it. I had to do that. It was like, oh my God, this is, because I was sitting over there going, I'm unhappy, man. I need to work with some entrepreneur. I need to learn something. I don't need the 70 grand. I need to be excited to go to work every day. How many people do you know, Greg, that have gone to work every day of their lives just to leave their home? They literally are going to work for a completely different reason. They don't even like the life they're leading at home, so they go and escape. And you wonder why you're not a success. No, you are a success, dude. You escaped the house. That was your goal. So I say that because unless I do this, and you really believe this story, right? Because you have a tremendous amount of faith. I think Conor McGregor is a great champion of mine, as is Muhammad Ali. Not because of how great they were, but how often they told people how great they were. And Muhammad Ali or Conor McGregor, I can't remember, said something once, and it's not good enough to write it down, and it's not good enough to say it to yourself in the mirror. You have to like throw it out to the universe. And the universe means, remember the guy said, the British gas guy, he said, dude, your belief in your own self is really compelling, but I don't believe you. I had secured myself so much in what I was going to do in the United Kingdom. I was just painting it every day. You see this picture? Where is this picture at? I've never told this story. Only one person knows the story. My brother, Grant. My brother, this is a storage field in, it's called Rough Storage in the United Kingdom. This is the only oil platform I have ever been on in my life. I was in this industry for 22 years. This is a monster. I bought this over a lunch table. 550 million pounds sterling. The man I was talking to said, hey, we're getting ready to sell this because we're a monopoly and we're going to sell it to Exxon. We're going to sell it to some other people. I'm like, I know who you're going to sell it to. You're going to sell it to Exxon, Mobil, and Conoco and BP. And it's going to be even worse of a club than the club that, because they were getting a lot of regulatory pressure. This is 97% of all the gas storage in the United Kingdom. Little Gary, with his stupid education, bought this over a lunch table because I had a relationship with a man who I never asked him for anything. I was always very helpful, and we did business from time to time, but not all the time. But every 6 months, I had lunch with this guy. And I helped him expand this business. And one Christmas, he sent me this picture. It was a tiny one, though. I said, hey, blow it up, put it in a frame. I had a much bigger one in my UK office. It sat on my wall right there every day. Every day I looked at the storage bill, every day. And when I was having lunch, Grant asked me this one day. He said, dude, how did you do a deal like that? I said, I'll tell you something, dude. Every day I went in my office and I looked at my goal. Now, it wasn't a goal in my mind, oh, I'm going to buy that. That would have been so outlandish for me to consider. I am going to buy the entire storage field in 92 days after having lunch at the Lanesboro Hotel. That's ridiculous, right? I mean, who could make that up? Like, that is what happened. But I think I had this thing in my mind the whole time that I had just gone through a $140 million loss. And this was my recovery. Like that year I got beat up so bad, and this deal just, so I believe in writing down and telling people what you're going to do. And that's how Node 40 came about. That's the real magic story. And if you're not doing that, you're going to accomplish whatever it is you set out to initially accomplish, whether you know it or not, consciously or unconsciously. And that's why I tell every entrepreneur, get somebody, go inward, look inside, do inventory on yourself first, and then you can be a great boss, great leader, great investor.
Here's what I was going to summarize. I think you thought I was going to summarize your bullet points, but what I was going to summarize is what that exercise is that you've done your entire life, because I do the same thing. I didn't tell you that the last time we talked. I do the exact same thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the way success proceeds, you think it, you speak it, and you do it. So that's how success proceeds. And what you have to have is you have to have a vision. So what you went through is you went through the process. You had the vision. You knew what you wanted to do. Now you had to put that vision down in what's called the map, the vision map. So that's your steps. What are the things that you want? How are you going to do it? So you created this vision, you put it down in writing, and then you put it out there to the world, because what you focus on, number one, vision. Where there is no vision, people perish, right? Where there's no vision, companies die. Where there's no vision, nothing happens. You got to have vision. It all starts with a vision. But that's not good enough. You have to map that vision down. Well, okay, I want to buy that oil platform. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, here's the steps I got to need to take. I got to have lunch with this guy every 6 months. Got to build a relationship. I got to call him. Got to make the offer. And it's got to be a real offer, right? And I got to know how to close this transaction. How am I going to get it funded? And all that. So it's that vision map. And, putting it out there to the universe, I mean, that's huge. You want to lose weight, tell everybody you're going on a diet, you're going to lose weight. Put it out there. Now you got accountability, because if you tell me you're going to buy that platform, every time we talk, hey, Gary, how's the deal going? So vision, you think it, you speak it, you do it. It's all about the vision. Put the vision into a plan. So now you can take action and let people know what you're doing, because it's a network business. It's a relationship business. You need to let people know what you're doing. You need to let the universe know what you're doing. And whatever that universe means to you, it could be God. It can be, whatever your God is. It could be the universe in terms of the system of energy that's out there. Whatever it is, you have to put it out there and you have to take action on it. And then it comes back. And you got to take the right action. And if you don't have that plan, well, you don't know what action you're taking. Like you said, then you're just going to end up wherever, because that's what you're focusing on.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. I mean, just to make it even weirder, I was really like challenging myself. Hey, so I bought Node 40 in the middle of the divorce. Like, we were in the middle of, papers and lawyers and judges, 12 of them. And my lawyer, I said, dude, I got to buy, I'm converting cash to buy Node 40 today. This was June 21. And I said, I know you're going to tell me, hey, this is going to be suicide for me, because you're not supposed to, move assets around. Now, I didn't move any assets around. I just changed from digital assets to Node 40. And I knew, quite frankly, that no judge on the planet was going to say that was a more risky move. Like, it was actually a de-risking move. But the rules are you're not supposed to move things around. Now, in fairness to me, we've been together for 15 years. I have made all investment decisions. I have funded every business or expense we've ever had. So there is no track record of anybody else making those type of decisions. But I called my lawyer and I said, and this is one of the things you said about, hey, now you got to know what to do. It's not just about thinking. See, the doing, you won't hear me talk a lot about doing, but there is a monster amount of doing, which you could do a whole thing on. What kind of doing? And when do you do? The doing changes, right? I called Peter up. I said, hey, Peter, I'm going to buy this company. I'm going to buy majority stake in this company. I know it's the middle of the divorce. I mean, it's going to look so bad in front of the judge and the other team. They're just going to have a lot of fat to chew on. And he said, Gary, it's going to create a lot of noise. I said, this is the problem. You're a lawyer and you don't understand this, because cases just come to you. But when great deals show up, they don't show up in the middle of the night when you're just laying in bed relaxing with fucking $300 million in cash in the bank, thinking about what to do with it. They always show up at the most inconvenient times. And that's what hesitates people from pulling the trigger, what you call doing, one of my logics for doing the deal was, hey, look, one, I am transferring less volatility. This is a good move for the family. I would have done it if we were still together. So I wasn't changing my agenda, but it really got me, what's the word for it? Committed to not languishing in my own remorse and insecurities that we're having a failed marriage. With the real thing was the kids, right? I just felt so bad for failing in a marriage and impacting them negatively. And I just saw this as, hey, you know what? I can buy Bitcoin, just hold on to it, but I'm not doing anything. I'm not producing anything. This got me really engaged in the world. It got me out talking to people. Not only do I hold Bitcoin, but I can also talk to anybody in the industry because of the business. You know, it made me commit to my life, right? And to the life of other people, the CEO's wife, his family, their family, blah, blah, blah. And I need that. Like, I know myself well, I need to be on a committed thing. Otherwise, I'll get in trouble, man. Not really bad trouble, but unproductiveness, which makes me bored and more lonely. I think human beings are lonely creatures, man.
You got to have purpose.
Purpose, that's the word I got a little purpose, okay? Now, I don't think it's the God purpose, but it's a purpose to help others. And I'm probably gonna make a lot of money. I mean, I am gonna make a lot of money for sure on this deal. So that's the story, and I'm really impressed with. When did you learn how to start doing that, Greg? When you started, is this come out of your religious background, or is it just a schooled? Hey, this is because it makes sense, right? Write down a plan, reiterate the plan, go back over the plan, keep writing the plan down, sharing it with others. It makes total sense, but few people. I know half a dozen people that do this.
Yeah.
That's it, to half a dozen max.
Yeah, I've done it my whole life. All my businesses, you know, I've I've started, scaled, exited dozens of businesses, all my real estate deals, everything starts with a vision. And I guess, so I didn't go to college, I went in the Navy right out of high school, and but I'm self-educated, and I did go to work before I started my entrepreneurial journey in 1997. I've been self-employed since 1997, never looked back. But I did, after the Navy, I did retail in the Navy, so I got some accounting training. But after the Navy, I did construction during the day, restaurants at night. So I was in restaurant management. I was working with one company, and they made us read a number of books to go through their management program. And in those books, that's where I learned a lot about leadership, delegation, management, vision, and all that. And then I started going on a quest of self-development, and personal and professional development. So I've read books on that process, vision mapping and things like that. Of course, the origination of vision comes from the Bible. I mean, that's Proverbs, where there is no vision, the people perish. Proverbs is one of the best business books ever written in the history of man. A lot of great business life lessons in there, but that, I knew vision. I just innately knew that. And I've always been a visionary. I'm just, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a natural born entrepreneur. And, I'm creative. I look for problems. I look for, opportunities and problems. Like a lot of people complain about their, as an entrepreneur, they complain, oh, it's such a tough day and these problems and this and that. I'm like, embrace those problems, look for those problems. That's where your opportunities are. Don't go out thinking, oh man, I got all these things coming against me. You go, thank goodness I've got all these things coming against me. Because that's where, like you said, that's where the great ideas and the great companies happen. So that's really where it came from, was educating myself with personal, professional development, and literally learning that system, how to map a vision.
That's beautiful. I don't think that story's told enough. Especially like people coming out of college, like looking for a job, like it would seem like it's such an easy thing to do. See, I would love to do that. Go into schools and help them with just building their vision quest, right? For, hey, what is it? And it's not hard. Hey, who am I? What am I interested in? Where are my skills? What gets me excited, right? And I think that would keep a lot of people out of trouble, because you start framing up what it is, and you don't need to know the industry. You just got to know kind of where you fit in the equation. That one of the things I always find, I find people want to own their own business too early in life. They want to go from They just want to become the baseball manager instead of going through the exercise of being a great hitter or a great pitcher or a great, you know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
why would you not want to play the game first? They want to be the general without, right? They want to be the general without being the soldier, right? And I think you have to be a good soldier to be a great leader. I mean, I must have been a pain in the ass to my bosses because I was so creative. Must have drove them crazy, but it was the right space for me. They had the right kind of environment. I think people don't often, especially when they're going in their career, think about, hey, what kind of person are you? Like, do you like fraternities? I was never a fraternity guy. I knew that about myself. Well, if you don't like fraternities, you might not want to get into an industry that's clubby, right? So what areas can I do? Just stuff like that. I just think it clarifies a journey a little bit.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, one of the greatest talks I've ever heard about vision, was from Earl Shoaf. So there was a guy named Earl Shoaf back in the 50s that did this in Long Beach, Earl Shoaf. And it's talking about how to get anything you want in life. He talks about how to get rich and these types of things. And at the end of the day, his talk was, the laws of success. So, I mean, really, that's what we're talking about. These are laws of success. And what is a law? It's a principle, like laws of gravity. It is what it is. It's not a theory. It's not an idea. I mean, these are laws.
It's going to happen. This exactly. Yeah.
So Earl Shoaf, if you look him up and listen to that talk, he talks about vision and he goes through it in great detail. And ever since then, and I heard that way, 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 way back. And that's what I've done with everything. So I've always seen in great detail exactly what it was I was trying to achieve, what I was going to become, the clothes I'm wearing. I mean, very detailed vision. And then I would map it down. He doesn't talk so much about, maybe he does talk about writing it down. And then there's other ones that talk about it too. Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill, he talks about, vision mapping and writing down, how to achieve your goals. Yeah. So a lot of different people, but it all came from Earl Shoaf. He was like the originator of a lot of that stuff.
Interesting. Do you see a common thread between entrepreneurs and their reading material?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the individual. Entrepreneurs are very different now, but, business and company builders. Yeah. If you're talking about a technologist that, a lot of times with a technology, I mean, that's a little bit different, but, business builders that build giant businesses with people and lead teams. Yeah, absolutely.
What are those readings besides Napoleon Hill, Earl Shoaf?
Well, just great business books. So yeah, I mean, the most successful people read all kinds of books, but for me, because again, I didn't go to college. I didn't know anything. Nobody in my family were entrepreneurs. They weren't business people. I wasn't taught anything about finance or business. All I was taught by my dad was, if you want something, you figure out how to make the money to get it. So I'd go cut grass, rake yards, whatever. So I knew that, but so I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That opened my mind up. Like a lot of people read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And this is how I think. A lot of people read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and they read about Robert and Kim's journey. And they learn real estate, right? And they learn about going from an employee to self-employed to a business owner to an investor, and they tie it to real estate. What I got out of the book was Rich Dad. I wanted to be Rich Dad. This was the guy that owned all the businesses, that generated cash flow, that to invest in all these other assets. Everybody was coming to him with deals, with opportunities for advice. So it was that book. It was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Those were my personal and professional development books that where I actually bought into, wow, I can do anything that I set my mind to. I can. And then I learned, about finance. And then on the business front, the best business books I ever read, and these were the ones that I was given by the restaurant company, was Managing by Harold Janine. He was the CEO of ITT, first multi-global conglomerate, built that company into, the first $1 billion plus business, multi-billion dollar business, and how to manage a global organization. Unbelievable book on management and how to lead teams. And then High Output Management by Andrew Grove, Intel CEO, his book. And then, as far as management, leadership, and delegation, the 1 Minute Manager series of books. Those were the basic fundamental books I started with. Then I went off and I started just consuming. It was Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar. And so when you talk to business people, and then of course I read business books, business biographies. So I read Steve Schwartzman, I read, Ray Kroc, I read, Truett Cathy. I mean, I read Colonel Sanders, I read all, Sam Walton, all the great titans of industry, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. I mean, I read all of their books, Sam Zell, and I learned by them because, you go back to the Napoleon Hill's mastermind, law of mastermind, your mastermind, you want to surround yourself with people who have done what you want to do, who are where you want to be, accomplish what you're looking to do, and you learn from them. And that can be you, me, and people we surround ourselves with, or it can be books, it can be biographies. There's a lot of ways to create a mastermind. So that was my mastermind. Those were my mentors.
Interesting. I've read so many books, man. It was my safe place, actually, to learn, because I've never known what I was doing. Except, hey, I get up in the morning, I go somewhere. Like I do the piece. You got to show up. Lady told me something once, my first trip to England. I mean, I'm 28, man. I look like I'm 23. I'm sitting in first class. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm sitting next to this lady. I had never traveled. At that time, there was, I think, 17% of US citizens had passports. It's about double that now, which is really pretty sad. And she said, look, I've traveled all over the world. I said, do you have any advice? This is one thing I have been really good at. I ask everybody, hey, what advice would you give me? I probably asked that of you in a number of different ways. It may not be framed that way.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm a seeker of wisdom. That was the other thing.
I've never met anyone that I can't learn something from. I just don't believe that I can't learn something from everyone. And I'm sitting there and I said, well, you have any advice, for somebody? I'm going to England. I'm not coming back. Now, my company did not know. This is part about being verbal about your goals in life, because you want to be held responsible for them, right? Somebody asked the other day, hey, what is the greatest fear man has? And I didn't know the answer, actually. And his answer was, he's a really bad man. And he said, no one wants to be embarrassed. That's their deepest fear. And the higher you go up the food chain, that is the greatest thing you don't. Like, your real goal in life, just don't embarrass them, which is really weird. Thus the reason why so few people verbalize what the hell they're getting ready to do. They're worried about, ooh, what if I don't do it?
Yeah.
Anyway, she said to me, she said, listen, no matter how much you may not want to go, no matter how busy you are, no matter how tired you are, if you get invited to go somewhere when you move, the moment you move to a city, a country, you must do two things. You say yes to everything, no matter how bad you feel. You go, you say yes, and you go. You're invited, you go. Second thing is, don't hang around with Americans. If you're going to Chicago, hang out with the Chicagoans. If you're going to the UK, hang out with the people in the UK. Do not just hang around with Americans. You've done nothing. And I did those two things. I have more friends from Europe than I have from America, because I did that. They treated me totally different. Because, why? They knew I was totally committed. Like, hey, when you going back? Dude, I'm on a one-way ticket. I don't know. I'm going to go back when you guys either throw me out or I've gotten sick and tired of you guys. And they really wanted me to leave on numerous occasions. The Brits are like, oh, the other piece of advice I was given was by a guy about like you. And he said, hey, the UK is a finite island. It is an island. By definition, it is finite in all resources. When you show up, dude, you're in a yank. You're not used to this mentality. They're all pirates, the best pirates on the planet. And they think you're a fucking pirate trying to take their stuff away. And I was like, wow, that's awesome information. See, to me, that was like, hey, I need to tread lightly here, dude. I came from America. Oh, we have everything. We got too much of everything, right? We're going to export it all. That's the attitude Americans have when they go to Europe, and that's what offends the Europeans. And the Americans don't even understand it because they've never thought, dude, this is an island. Limited resources, for sure, right? Anyway, all those rules were like, they seem like really dumb rules. I'm telling you, they were the key operating principles for success.
No, I mean, that's brilliant genius. I mean, yeah, there's nothing dumb about it. Well, cool. Well, we've been going for a little over 2 hours here. So
dude, we don't have enough content, man.
I think we ought to wrap this up. We've got a lot to follow up on, that's for sure. So I think this is probably going to be a regular thing. So everybody watching, we're going to unpack more stuff. So let us know what you want to hear. We're going to keep on doing this. Look us up on Spaces. Follow us on Twitter. We're doing Twitter Spaces, and we're doing more of these interviews. So we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Greg, you're the bomb, buddy. Thank you.